Hello and welcome back to Albion Online. So, as ever, I've been thinking about the plight of the new players in Albion and you know, they're often asking questions such as what's the best way for me to fame farm? What's a good way for me to make silver? And one of the things that is good for, it's decent for fame, but it's better for silver is to do black zone random dungeons. And being black zone, obviously they're full loot, and that's pretty scary for a newer player. But there are ways of keeping yourself relatively safe. There's been quite a lot of videos done, and they've covered the subject really well. But there's one thing that they gloss over, and so I'm going to go over the whole subject, but I'm going to, in the middle part of the video, explain a bit that I think needs explaining in a little bit more detail. So first thing, how to get to the dungeon. So you start off in one of the cities. Here we are, we're in Thetford. And if you look at the map, the mini map, pressing your N key, you can see signs for the Conqueror's Hall. So you go to the Conqueror's Hall. Now, once you're in the Conqueror's Hall, there's a portal. Now, don't worry about going through this portal. This portal takes you to a new town, which is like the Thetford Portal town. Okay, so you're not going straight into the Black Zone, so you haven't got to worry yet. So from here, this is where you access the Black Zone. Okay, and you can see it's like a cartwheel, and each one of these exits takes you to a different Black Zone. Okay, a different zone within the Black Zones. Now let's go over the build that I've chosen to do the random dungeon, and obviously as we're gearing this towards a new player, I've gone for a pretty cheap build. Right, so if we look, this build is 26,000, so it is mega cheap. Okay, so we're going with the Mage Cow with poison. We're doing this to help us with killing mobs, and obviously it's a single target ability, so it's going to be really effective for helping us to kill the boss mobs. We're going with the Mercenary Jacket for the Bloodlust ability to help us have more sustain and stay alive. This will heal us for quite a lot. Now we're using the boots. We're going to have Wanderlust on them while we are not in the dungeon and not fighting. Once the dungeon has closed, we will switch to Rejuvenating Sprint for the heal that it gives, and the speed is instant, so it's more usable. The weapon we're using is the One-Handed Nature Staff. Okay, this is a very, very good weapon at the moment. The Q is just excellent for damage. What you do is you stack the Q underneath the mobs, and then you auto-attack them and do really, really strong damage. We're using Bramble Seed for more damage, okay, and it also knocks them up in the air, so you can interrupt abilities with that. The E, this is good because if you get a load of stacks of the Q underneath the mobs, you heal yourself and you damage the mobs, so that's very effective. We're going to use the energy passive, so we don't need to worry about energy. This will restore our energy most of the time. So we're using the torch for cooldown modifier and attack speed. So cooldown modifier not so important on this speed, but attack speed is quite nice because we rely on our auto attacks to do extra damage to the mobs. And we are using a tier 2 cape basically because it costs virtually nothing. You could probably get away with not using a cape at all with this. That basically is the whole build. But if you look, we've also got this in our inventory, Assassin's Jacket. Now, we're not going to use this in the dungeon, but what we are going to do, we're going to travel with it on. So should we get dismounted by any of those horrible gankers, we can use Invis to try and get away. We've also got an Invis potion. I'll go over the two uses of this later on, but one use is, again, if we get dismounted, we use the Invis pot, and then we can like get some distance, and then before the Invis pot runs out, we can use the Assassin's Jacket to get more distance away from the gankers. It's also worth noting what you should do is use your boots, so use Wanderlust, Invis pot, Get as far as you can while that's still running, and just before it ends, use your Invis jacket, your Assassin's Jacket Invis ability. So now we're ready to use our dungeon map. As soon as we use it, it will tell us where it is, and it's in Widemore Delta. We can see on the mini-map which zone to exit. It gives us a nice indicator here. Now, before we leave, we always use the invisibility shrine. This will mean we can get to our dungeon safely. At this point, no one can see us. We are silenced also. This is what this symbol means. It means that we can't use any abilities. We can see this is the location of our dungeon. This is quite a reasonable location. It's not near a road. It's not near a point of interest, which minimizes the chance of someone actually just stumbling across the dungeon just after we enter it. Right, so now we dismount. When we dismount, we make sure there's no players around. We didn't get a red exclamation mark, which means there was no one nearby. And now we can just enter the dungeon safely. Now, immediately, we start a logout. This will give us the 90-second timer, which means the dungeon will be shut behind us. But now, this is the point that people go over very, very casually. I haven't put the ability on there. That was really silly. If they go over this very casually, the invulnerability timer, we're really vulnerable here. And this is why I have the Invis pot and the Assassin's Jacket. Because if someone comes in now, they can start attacking us. We haven't got a bubble. And if we leave, we still won't have a bubble. And most gankers will come in pairs, 3s, 4s, 5s. It doesn't matter. There will be lots of them. So you need a way of escaping. And what you can do is you move towards the portal here. Don't go through it. Pop your invis. They will think you've left. They will probably leave. Then you can just start moving your way into the dungeon, wait this timer out, and then probably leave. And then just go back to the city, because you'll have a timer. You can mount up. You can go back to the city, get another map, and try again. So now we're safe. Because if a player comes in now, we can leave safely. That little icon is gone. We can now leave, and we will have an invulnerability bubble when we leave. And we can just mount up and run away. So we're safe now. But that first period where you have no invulnerability if you rezone, that is why we have the Assassin's Jacket and the invisibility potion. Using the same technique as we went over earlier. I'm going to stop the logout now. As what we went over earlier. We just need to move. Where you will pop the potion, get as far away from the player as you can. But you use your boots first, though. You use your boots, pop the potion, get as far away as you can, then use your invisibility on your Assassin's Jacket and get further away. Then you can probably... They will probably think you've gone out because they'll just see you move this way and disappear. They'll think you've left. Okay? So you can then... You'll probably have... The timer will probably have counted down by then. You'll be deeper into the dungeon and then you can safely A out. Now, this doesn't always work. In fact, while I was filming the video, I got ganked. Even using the invisibility potion and the jacket, it was a cursed player came straight in and started hitting me. And I couldn't get deep enough and far enough away. And there was 3 of them. 3 gankers, all for a 600 IP player. Well done, you. So I actually got away from the curse initially. I doubled back, so I duked him and I could have got out. But 2 other players had come in. And they may have even had more on the outside. So it is dangerous doing Black Zone dungeons. But if you follow these rules... You probably got about a 90% chance, probably higher, of being able to not get ganked. Well, we went on and cleared the dungeon, and now we're in the position where we need to get the loot back. There isn't much loot. It was a pretty poor one, but Confused 1 doesn't have the benefit of premium, and that obviously makes a big difference. But nonetheless, we need to get back to the city, and unlike when you're traveling to the dungeon, you don't have the option of using an invisibility shrine. So we're going to use what we did when we came out. We're going to put our Assassin's Jacket on with invisibility. We've still got our invisibility potion. And we can now, like we went over the invulnerability timer, that's long gone. We can now exit the dungeon, pressing A. And when we get out, we will have the invulnerability shield. And we can mount up safely. No one can attack us. Doesn't matter who sees us. We are completely safe. That doesn't mean we're completely safe all the way back. Once this shield has gone, we are now vulnerable to attack. But it is important that you can get on your mount. Obviously, we're on a very cheap mount, which is easy to dismount, and there's a blob there. That's worrying. Thankfully, the blob didn't head our way, so we managed to avoid them. We safely completed our first tier 6 map. We didn't make a huge amount of money, but if we had premium, we would have made a lot more. Another thing I wanted to go over is how you could further protect yourself. So we can imagine that you're actually using more expensive sets because you want a clear speed. You want your clear speed to be quicker. Maybe you're doing tier 8 maps and you want that to be, you're going to use more expensive gear to do tier 8 maps to what tier 6 maps as we have been doing. So you maybe don't, you want to mitigate that risk even further. You can take Spectre shoes as well as an Invis pot and as well as the Assassin's Jacket. And basically you can use them in conjunction. So as we said earlier, player comes in the dungeon. You immediately use your Invis pot. You move until the Invis pot has almost ended. Then you use your Spectre shoes. Now the Spectre shoes, you can go for a long time Invis, okay? 16 seconds. On top of the invis on the invisibility potion, that's 23 seconds of movement. You can just get a long way into the dungeon. They will not know where you are. And at that point, you are almost definitely not going to have the invulnerability timer. So you can just A out, remount, and leave. So this is even safer. The reason I didn't use it with a set I was using was basically cost. They're not cheap. 79,000 for a flat 4. They're quite expensive, but if you're using a set that's worth, say, 500k, then it's well worth it. Another option you can also use is the Undead Cape, okay? But these are really expensive, so you probably wouldn't use these unless you're using a very expensive kit. So these will do, what these do is they make you invisible, but only once you're almost dead, basically. So if you look, when your health drops below 15%, so don't go buying these on a cheap set. Really not worth it. If you've got a really Gucci set, definitely worth it, but otherwise I wouldn't use that. Well, I hope you enjoyed that guide. I hope there were some things in there that might stop you getting ganked. If there's anything you think I've got wrong, or maybe that I've left out, I'd really love to hear. If you could give me a comment down below, that would be really good. Also, if you did enjoy it, if you could leave me a like, maybe subscribe, that really helps me out, helps the channel out, helps us get noticed so that we can carry on making more content and trying to help people in their journey through Albion Online. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.